We switch from the team point of view on agents to the player point of view. And when I thought of having a player up here, there was only one choice. As good a player that's ever graduated from this university, let's welcome Brian Westbrook.
Thank you.
Nice to be home again.
Absolutely. Love coming back to Villanova. Remember all the good days down on the South Campus and the library?
Yeah, right. You know where that is?
I passed it a couple times.
Like the two members that were up here just before him, Brian is also a member of the Morad Center Board of Directors. A lot of people think that former players don't get active in things like this, but he's been very active, always available when I need him. So appreciative to have Brian up here. Brian, let's talk about the agent experience for you. First of all, coming out of here.
Yeah.
Not a big school, not a big name, although you were high in the draft, third round. Agents recruiting you? Did they go through Coach Talley? Did they come to your family? How was the recruiting experience?
Just like you mentioned, when you're not a guy that's at Miami or Florida State, one of those big schools, a lot of the times the bigger name agents, they don't really come after you. They want guys that are going in the first and second round, guys that they can make a lot of money with. And so for me, I had smaller agencies, agencies that can pay a little bit more attention to you as a player, guys that I knew would go out there and work hard for me individually, and I wouldn't be lost in the shuffle. And one of the major things for me as a player was not to get lost in the shuffle with the 30 other guys that you have maybe going in the first or second round. And so when I spoke to the agents, that was the number one thing. How can you guarantee me that when I call you, I'm going to call a phone call back, and I'm not talking to your secretary, and I'm not talking to your assistant and things like that. That was very important. So I had a good group of guys. Actually, most of them knew Coach Talley. And so Coach Talley has a group of people that he just knows, the head coach here. And, he introduced me to him, and we kind of went over what I should be looking for in an agent, a guy that you, number one, can trust, especially coming from a small school, not knowing the business. Really almost every player doesn't understand the business unless their parents or someone in their family has actually gone through the process. You don't understand the process of being drafted and the business of the NFL. And so a lot of the guys that I talked to, they were smaller guys, but they were able to explain to me the business. And that's what I needed to know. I needed to understand what process will I be actually going through, and how can I use you, my agent, as a resource to make that process a lot more smoother for myself.
And what were the pitches like? I'm sure the bigger agencies talked about clout, and the smaller talked about personal attention.
Exactly. They were pitching, hey, well, I'll give you that personal attention. I might not be able to give you $100,000 like this agent or that agent, but I'm able to make sure that all of your personal needs are being taken care of. And for a guy that was eventually going to third round that's in a smaller school, that was important for me. I wanted that personal attention. I wanted to be able to call you and say, okay, what type of financial advisor should I be looking for? What type of guy should I be looking for to train? How do I get in shape? All those questions that you have to find out somehow. I have to find them out, get all those questions answered from someone. Hopefully it's through my agent, a guy that's been in the business 15, 20 years.
And who did you pick and why?
I picked a group called EAS, led by Tony Agnon down in Baltimore. I just picked them because the number one thing is that service, but a lot of times I would call. They would be at the practices. They would be at my home. They would talk back and forth to my parents. They showed us a good time. We went out a couple times just to different games, and the conversations that we had, which are most important for me, they were always positive. They were always great. They pushed me to be a better player, especially coming out of school. And I think at that point in my career, that's what I needed. That's what I needed at the time. And the other agents that I interviewed, they were just as good. It just happened to be that these guys just presented something different that they didn't present. And that difference, with 3 or 4 guys with that personal attention was really what I was looking for.
Did any of them promise they could get you drafted higher? This is a question I get a lot from players where their agents say, I can get you drafted higher.
No, none of them promised me. It was a toss-up if I was going to get drafted at all. And so none of the agents were like, you know, I could get you drafted in the second or third round. Most of them, their sales pitch was simple. I'm going to get you drafted. If you work hard, you will get drafted somewhere. And after that, I'm going to work to get you the most money as I can as your agent. And, you know, and all the agents say, well, I have a special relationship with this GM and that GM, and I work with him and all these other things. Every agent that I interviewed said that. None of those agents actually had people inside the Philadelphia Eagles organization to help. And so I think a lot of the GMs, and Barry probably understands a little bit better, they talk to almost all the agents. You know, and so they want to. All the agents are fighting for money, and the GMs talk to those guys. And so the familiarity with the clubs is important. But you know, for the most part, all those guys have experience of talking to GMs and different people inside of the clubs.
So you get to draft day, and I think for people who don't know, third round is a high pick, but it takes forever.
Yeah.
So where were you? Were you with your agent, and how was that experience?
Well, I wasn't with my agent. I was at home, you know, and so back then, the first 3 rounds are on the first day. And so it's a long day, and, you know, you're with your friends, and you might have a cocktail or two or a beer. And by the time 10:30, 11 o'clock, when I get called, you know, we're 1 or 2 cocktails in. So I get the call from Mark Ross, he was the head of somewhere in Philadelphia at the time. He said, "Are you ready to be Eagle?" I was like, excuse my, I was like, hell yeah. And so he put Andy on the phone, and you know we talked about it a little bit, and it was a great experience. It was a long day. Obviously they've changed the format of the draft now, but it was a very long day. It was stressful, and the process leading up to being drafted, meaning the combine, the pro days, they were just as stressful. But, you know, once you get drafted, it's like a weight off your shoulder, because you have to imagine you don't really have an opportunity to choose where you're going. You want to go to a good team. You don't want to go to a team that's not very good. You want to go to a team that has a good head coach, but you also want to have the opportunity to play. And fortunately for me, I was able to go to a very good organization with a very good head coach that was going to give me the opportunity to play and be able to exploit some of the things I'm able to do on the football field.
Did you think the Eagles were one of the teams that would draft you? Was your agent telling you the Eagles are a likely possibility or anything like that?
You know, I don't think my agent mentioned anything. I think with his thoughts were, listen, you're going to get drafted hopefully the first day. And I'm not sure what team it is, but you will get drafted. And no matter what, the most important thing to him and what he's kind of expressed to me, no matter what team you go to, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to do what you are capable of doing. And so just be prepared to move across the country. And it ended up, I was able to stay locally, but he never actually even mentioned the Eagles at all. I know Coach Reed had come to a few of the games and things like that, but when you talk to these teams, they're always just kind of, well, maybe we'll try and this, that, and the other, and we'll draft you in the first round. I'm like, okay, that's good. So a couple rounds later, I was able to get picked up.
So you're drafted, then you have the contract experience. Tony, how much were you kept abreast of the contract negotiations with the Eagles, and how much did you not want to know until it was complete?
I think that first contract was probably the least amount that I was involved. It was more so, I just want to play football. Agent, I trust you. I'm going to pay you a good amount of money. I want you to just do your job. I want you to take care of it, and I'm just want to get ready to play football. That was the first one. Now the other ones,
well, let's get to that. So, how long was your first one?
The first one was 3 years. So my first contract was 3. I was lucky. I was able to do a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
And so most of those times, you know, I mean, you make minimal money. You get a signing bonus, and whatever the minimum is for this guy that doesn't have a chance to play, is going to play special teams, and who knows if he'll be in the league for 3 years. We'll give him a minimum amount of money, and we'll give him a little signing bonus, and good luck. We'll see where he lands. And so I did a 3-year deal. I was able to trick the Eagles into signing another deal with me. And, you know,
I think Aileen's here now.
Yeah, yes, thank you. every year, every contract and every year you start to be a little bit wiser and you start to understand things differently. You're able to get into that locker room and talk to the older guys to understand exactly what their thoughts are, and you see other people's contracts, and you start to see how teams are able to say, okay, you're only worth this much. And what the teams normally do, they say, in my case, they said, Tiki Barber is a guy that we align your skill set with. He's making $5 million a year, so we're going to give you $5 million a year. Now, on our side, we're saying, okay, I don't think my skill is aligned with Tiki Barber. I'm with the next running back that's better than him. So I want $7 million a year, and I want a bigger signing bonus, and Tiki was signed last year. Right. And so I need that bump up from a year difference.
Inflation.
And so, yeah, I need more money. And so it's a delicate process, and it's weird because my first contract, I wasn't very into it. I kind of let my agent do it. My second one, I made my agent keep me abreast of all the conversations. And just like Aileen was saying and Barry was saying, some of those things that they are saying as a client, you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear that you can't do this and you can't do that. And, they had Joe Banner there at the time, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy, but...
Hey, he's on our board too now.
Yeah. Joe, he was, if I'm the owner, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I love having Joe Banner on my team because he's going to get the most out of the player and for the cheapest amount. Now, if you're the player, you're like, I don't necessarily like Joe Banner because he's not trying to give me the money that I feel as though I'm deserved. And so the conversations, I wouldn't say that it's probably best for the player to hear because as a player, you're saying, listen, I'm at the prime of my career. I deserve the money, and you're telling me now you don't want to pay me the money because I can't do this and I can't do that, and you're not as good as this person, you're not as good as that person. And to me, I'm saying, well, hell, if I'm not as good as this guy or that guy and I can't do all these things, well, let me go, and I'll go find a team that wants to use the skills that I have. And so that's the kind of breakdown that you have there, and it just goes back and forth for a long time. You want it to be over, and now also as a player, so you're thinking about everything that they're saying. You think about all that your agent's going through, and now these same guys that you're negotiating with that are in some cases talking bad about you, saying you can't do these different things, these are guys you have to go to work and see every day. And they want to get the best out of you, and so now you see so many players that aren't able to say, okay, I'm still able to play. Because the contract negotiation, and I use Deshaun Jackson as an example, a couple years ago, they had a contract situation. They didn't pay him. And he had a terrible year because he's thinking about the money. He's thinking about all the things that they have said. It was a mental game, and now he can't go out there and perform his job. And so after that, they paid him, and he had a great season. But it just takes a toll on the player, it takes a toll on the agent as well, I'm sure.
Are you able to separate that your agent's dealing with Joe Banner, whoever the front office is, and you say going in, can you separate, in that case, Andy Reid or your coaches or your sort of the football operation from the business side where it doesn't affect you, where you understand that's business, this is football?
Well, you want to be able to do that. It's hard because for the Eagles or whatever the club is, it's a business decision. They're doing what's best as a business. Now, of course, as a player, it's a business decision as well. However, it's very personal. It's very personal when you say, I can't do this and you can't do that. And the bottom line is the difference between $8 million signing bonus and 10 is a lot of money. And so you want to get the most as you can. And so I think Andy Reid did a very good job, even though I knew he was part of the whole the management, the conversation. I knew he was in on those conversations. But I think he did a very good job of kind of playing the fence with both. And as a coach, it's a tough position to be in because you're saying, okay, we need Brian Westbrook to play for us, but you're also trying to save the team as much money as you can. And so I'm going to Andy. I'm saying, Andy, show me the money. Give me the money. What's the problem? You need me as a player. And he's saying, yeah, we need you as a player because he's a coach and he understands everything that he asks me for. But that doesn't necessarily always go back to Joe Banner or whoever is making the decision as we need to give Brian Westbrook the money. He's like, well, we can get him for $2 million less than he's asking. And so it's a delicate thing. And as a player, when you're 25, 26 years old, everything's personal. He don't want to pay me, I don't like him then. So when I see Joe Banner in the hallway, I'm gonna bump into him.
He was invited here. That's perhaps
right.
why he didn't come. that personal nature to it. And yes, I know when people say it's not personal, it's business, it's always personal.
It's always personal.
So how much did your agent, and maybe you answer this, shield you from those difficult perceptions they were giving? You're worth this guy, but you're not worth that guy, you're worth this much. How much did your agent try to position it like, hey, Brian, that's okay, they like you, they want you, just not what we want exactly? How much was that going on?
Well, the way that I work with my agent is simple. Listen, tell me everything, and then I'll decide what part I want to listen to, what part I appreciate, what part I'm going to discount. That's just the way I felt. Just tell me everything they're saying, which definitely is not the best way to do it. So I heard most of the conversations, and I took everything personal. And it was just tough to walk into that building hearing what Joe Banner or whoever else has said about you and still want to go to work for that man. And some agents do a better job. I was just one of those clients that I wanted to know so that when I'm dealing with this person in the day-to-day situation, I want to know who you are. Because if you're talking bad about me behind my back, I don't want to be your best friend when I see you. And so he told me everything, and a lot of those things I just didn't like. And I think it's a little bit different now. Just because Howie's a different type of person, especially with the Eagles. He's more of a guy that you can go talk to. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a different outcome, a different answer. It just means I have a more personal relationship with Howie than I had with Joe, and it won't be me against you all the time. And it still may come up with the same answer. I still may only give you the same amount of money, but the correspondence going back and forth and my feeling towards the organization and him in particular is a little bit different than it probably would have been with Joe.
Did you ever confront Joe personally?
We had a couple tough conversations, and you know, the bottom line for me as a player is, listen, I know I only have 8 years, 9 years, 10 years of play, and I have to get as much money as I can from you during that time. Now, as an organization, you know that I only have 10 years of play, and you want to get the best player that you can possibly get. And you don't want to overpay, and I don't want to get underpaid. So at some point, there has to be compromise on both sides. And the tough part in negotiations is finding that compromise and then still saying, okay, now that we paid you a little bit less than you really wanted, I don't want you to be pissed off at me. I want you to be cool with me so you can go out there and be the best player. And sometimes when you're 25, you don't quite get that. You're saying, I still actually hate you. Thank you for the money, but I'm still mad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, those feelings don't die.
No, they don't.
You're right.
You know, it's weird because as a player, you know, me and Joe, we had a lot of different conversations. I'll tell you one conversation. One of the that has nothing to do with the agent, has more to do with Joe. One time I got a signing bonus, $3 million. Somehow, the Eagles paid me my signing bonus on the 27th of March, and accidentally paid me the $3 million again on the 30th of March. I didn't have a problem with that. Now, they didn't find this out until the following February. I didn't mention it. And so they called and was like, look, you need to pay this money back. I was like, well, hold on. I spent the money. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have it. And so we had to go through this whole process. And it's tough because you pay taxes on it, and then you're either trying to get your money back from the IRS. It's a whole long process. But I said, Joe, you know, you guys can't come to me and act like I'm a criminal here. You guys gave me the money, and I'll try my best to work to get it to you as quickly as I can, but I can't rush this type of thing, you know? And so, you know, we had a lot of different conversations, and those are the conversations that you start to see a person a little bit more. I still don't have great feelings about Joe. But, I mean, I think he was doing his job. His job was to save the club as much money as he can, get the best players that he can, and that's actually in stark contrast to the player because you want to get the most money as you can, and if you could get a couple years where you're not doing very much but you're still getting paid, you want to do that as well.
And when they came to you with the double payment,
yeah,
it's nice to have, they said we screwed up.
Mm-hmm. They didn't say that at first, but it finally came out, yeah. What it was, you know, and, you know, they tried to just go into the account and just take the money back out. And I'm like, well, hold on. We're still working together. I'm still in my prime, so you still want me as a player. You can't disrespect me like that. Call, and we'll talk about it, and we'll try to figure it out. But what can't happen is if I'm one of your best players, you can't disrespect me because it's going to be a problem. And, you know, we talked about that a few times, and trying to get the money back was an issue. But at the same time, you know, this is business. This is, y'all made the mistake, not me. And so that's the way it was.
And was the agent involved in that?
My agent was involved. So it was a personal situation. I felt as though, you know, and him and Joe, now my agent at the time, I fired my first agent. My second agent, we had this, me and Donovan had the same agent. So one of the decisions that I had to make was when hiring an agent, I wanted a guy that was going to work well with Philadelphia. I knew they had to work with Donovan's agent. They just had to. He was a guy, obviously Donovan was a man, so they had to work with him. They had a pretty decent relationship. And so the agent at the time was like, I'll go talk to Joe. And, you know, we got in the meeting, and he, you know, they spoke their language, and eventually they worked it out, they figured it out. But you always want that agent to be that buffer, that person that you can say, okay, this is what I feel, and he's able to explain that to the other side. And it really should go vice versa. But he did a decent job. He did a decent job. And I fired him after that.
Well, yeah, why did you switch first time and second time?
Well, I think
in your own words.
Yeah, as a player, you have different needs. When I first coming out of school, I needed a guy that could give me that personal attention, that could take me from where I was at, Division I AA school, to a major organization, and be able to, you know, give me that attention and teach me the ropes. Now, what happened was, for a player, for me, I want my agent to understand this. You're the only person. The business can be dirty. You're the only person I trust. You've been through these things for the last 20 years, and I trust you. And so what you can't do to me, this is my philosophy, is ever lie to me. If you lie to me, then our relationship is over. And it was an insignificant issue, but he just lied to me. And I'm like, look, man, you're on my team, and you cannot lie to me. And you just did. It's going to be hard for me to trust anything that goes on. I depend upon you to trust you to lead me in the right direction for financial advice, football advice, marketing advice, all those things. And now you've broke that bond. And so it's going to be almost impossible for me to trust you. So I would rather just sever our relationship now, and you go your way, I go my way, and we're good. And, you know, that was what happened.
First time or second time?
First time he lied to me.
You switched agents twice?
Yeah, I switched agents twice. Now, the first time, yeah, that was the first time with that situation. Now, then I got another contract with Donovan's agent, Fletcher Smith, good agent. And then I fired him. And it was just, I needed different things at the time. And some agents are going to be absolutely great at marketing. They have a marketing staff. They have guys that they can bring in to help you go from a client that nobody knows to a higher level client that everyone knows. Then the other agencies don't have that. Some agencies have a great financial staff, and so other agencies don't have that. And so at the time, I needed something different, and the new agency that I went with was able to provide everything that I was looking for, and it just worked out well.
Now, I know the answer is going to be no, but I've seen you give counsel to LaShawn, Deshaun, a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought of getting in that business?
You know, I haven't thought about it, and it's tough because the number one thing to me as a man, as an ex-player, is I want the guys to respect me. I want them to understand I've been through absolutely everything that you're going through right now, and I want you to respect me. And sometimes, not that agents do anything shady all the time, but sometimes you have to do things that you may lose the respect of some of your clients and things like that. And unfortunately, that's just part of the business. And I've never wanted to be on that side. I always want guys to be able to come to me like, you know, Wes, this is the deal. Sean McCoy calls me twice a week. This is what's going on, and I tell him the truth. I tell him my opinion, and how I feel. And you know, I want to always have that relationship with the guys. And you know, for me, that's way more important than a couple dollars here and there.
Brian Westbrook, that was great. Thank you.